I'm here today with Kim Wright, who's been a friend of mine for over 15 years. And our travels have allowed us to intersect in lots of parts of the world. And she's just been telling me about her next trip to all points around the world with her work, which is Kim's a lawyer and she's a legal change entrepreneur. She's works on changing the way law gets practiced and the role of lawyers. And she does that in lots of systems around the world. So she's also been a great friend of Appreciative Inquiry. And today she's going to start off talking to you about Appreciative Inquiry impact on her life and work. So Kim.
Thanks, Sally. So I hope that I have a somewhat appreciative approach naturally to this work. And what I noticed is that when I found it, it gave me the framework that allowed me to talk about it. So one of the ways that people usually perceive lawyers is that we're the people you call when things are really a mess, and you want somebody to you want somebody who will beat up somebody for you, and will threaten them, attack them, and use muscle of the court, the metaphorical muscle, much in the way that gladiators were hired to fight in the past. And that wasn't the way I practiced law, and it wasn't the way that I thought law should be practiced. And so when I found AI, one of the real defining moments of my life was actually creating a question that I would ask lawyers. And that question was, what if lawyers were peacemakers, problem solvers, and healers of conflicts? And what I discovered was that when I asked that question, the fight kind of diffused, and they became curious. And so I actually still have that on my website. What if lawyers were peacemakers, problem solvers, and healers of conflicts? And it helped me to start finding lawyers who were doing work in that sort of way, and then becoming sort of a person who showcased them and writing books and teaching around the world. Lawyers look to the past to tell us what's going to happen in the future. I mean, it's called legal precedent, and it is one of the ways that the system stays stable. It's like you don't get rapid and sudden change when you're looking back and saying, well, what did this judge do the last time something like this happened? And yet we're in this crazy, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world now where that doesn't always work. I mean, how do you have a precedent about some of the discoveries in neuroscience, or some of the other kinds of discoveries that are really shaking all of the ways that we've been seeing the legal system? And so when I started taking lawyers through the process of looking at what the future could be, it was a real shift. It's like, instead of looking back, we started looking forward. And instead of looking at, we've got to have slow and incremental change, we started actually working in a way that was more in alignment with what's happening in the world now. So the lawyers who have been doing this sort of, we call it integrative law work, have invented new models that are much friendlier and more effective for the world we're living in now. Mindful contracts is another term, integrative contracts. But the idea is to start with actually creating a relationship. It's like, what is it that you bring to this contract, and what is it that I bring to this contract? What are our values? What is our purpose, our mission? And what is it that we bring in terms of our strengths? What is a contract in terms of our strengths? So, for example, I may not know that you are the expert at doing some kind of a widget that I need that we haven't even previously talked about. And when we come to the table and we talk about all of these things about who we are and what we love to do and how we want to be in the world, a lot of new discoveries happen. In fact, my colleague wrote a book called Discovering Agreement, which also describes this process. And so when we create that, it gives a more relational and connected approach to the contract. And then the other really key part of a conscious contract is we design how are we going to resolve the conflicts that inevitably come up or address the change. And so we've taken the conflict resolution world, the restorative justice world, some of the OD world, and we've built it into a model of contracts that actually is more powerful and sustainable than the old models, which just depended on forms and 87 pages of irrelevant boilerplate.
Wonderful. That's a contribution to all of us.